The markets move fast. Narratives move even faster. But behind every headline, behind every policy decision, and every market reaction, there are usually deeper signals most people never stop to examine. That's what this show is about. Looking past the noise and focusing on what the data is actually telling us. Let's begin. Folks, everybody seems focused on one question. What is Kevin Warsh going to do at his first Federal Reserve meeting? Will he cut rates? Will he hold rates? Will he completely change the direction of monetary policy? But I think that's the wrong question. The better question is this: what happens if Kevin Warsh's first meeting arrives just as inflation starts moving in the wrong direction? Because that's exactly where we are today. This week, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released the latest inflation report. Inflation is running at 4.2% year over year. That's not a projection, that's the number. Just released this week, and it's higher than last month's 3.8%. At the same time, markets still largely expect the Federal Reserve to leave rates unchanged. Think about that. A new Fed chair, a market expecting stability, and a fresh inflation print that just moved in the wrong direction. So today we're going to break down why Wall Street is paying so much attention to Kevin Warsh's first meeting, why some analysts are talking about renewed rate hike risks, and the underreported reality that could matter far more than the actual rate decision. Because sometimes the biggest market story isn't what the Fed does. It's what the Fed says next. Let's get into it. Today, we're looking at four things. First, what's happening right now with inflation and the Federal Reserve. Second, why Kevin Warsh's first meeting comes at such a difficult moment. Third, the two competing scenarios markets are debating. And finally, the underreported fact most investors misunderstand about how the Fed actually influences markets. Let's start with where we are today. The Federal Reserve has a dual mandate: maintain price stability and support maximum employment. Right now, policymakers are trying to balance both, and this week's data made that job harder. The Bureau of Labor Statistics just released the May CPI report. Inflation came in at 4.2% year over year. That's up from 3.8% in April. Now, here's what's driving it. Energy is the story. The energy index rose 3.9% in May alone and is up 23.5% over the past year. Gasoline jumped 7% in a single month. That one category, energy, accounted for more than 60% of the entire monthly increase. Core inflation, which strips out food and energy, came in at 2.9% year over year. That's actually more contained, which tells us something important. This isn't broad inflation running hot across the whole economy. This is an energy price problem pushing the headline number higher. And that distinction matters enormously for how the Fed responds. Markets continue to expect little or no change in rates at this meeting because leadership transitions are rarely about the first decision. They're about the direction of future decisions. And investors are trying to understand how Kevin Warsh thinks. History gives us some clues. Every time a new Federal Reserve chair takes over, markets go through the same exercise. They try to figure out what changes. What's unique about Kevin Warsh is that he isn't new to the Federal Reserve System. He served as a Federal Reserve governor during the financial crisis. Historically, investors often focus too much on the first rate decision. The bigger story is usually how the new chair approaches the job. Scenario A, energy prices stabilize, the headline inflation number starts pulling back toward 3% or below, the Fed keeps rates unchanged. Warsh's first meeting becomes primarily a communication event. Markets breathe a little easier. Scenario B, energy prices stay elevated or climb further. That 4.2% headline doesn't budge. The Fed may need to keep rates elevated longer than markets expected. Analysts begin discussing additional tightening risks. And Warsh faces a very difficult first press conference. Neither scenario requires an immediate rate move. The bigger issue is future expectations, because markets don't just react to today's decision. They react to what they believe tomorrow's decision might be. And this latest inflation print just shifted that calculus. Here's what most people missed. The market and the Federal Reserve are not always focused on the same question. The market wants to know, when will rates come down? The Federal Reserve wants to know, is inflation actually defeated? Those are not the same question. If markets are already expecting rates to remain unchanged, then the actual rate decision may be the least important part of the meeting. The statement matters, the projections matter, the dot plot matters, and Kevin Warsh's first press conference may matter most of all, because investors aren't just looking for a decision, they're looking for a roadmap. 5 things to watch this week. First, this week's CPI report. Inflation came in at 4.2% year over year. Energy up 23.5% over the past 12 months. That number is now front and center for every Fed watcher on Wall Street. Second, the FOMC meeting. Third, the dot plot. That's the Fed's internal map of where they expect rates to go. Fourth, the updated economic projections. And fifth, Kevin Warsh's first press conference as chair. That press conference may be the most important thing that happens this week, not because of what he decides, because of what he signals about what comes next. What's your take on all of this? I'd genuinely be interested to hear your perspective, so down in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. And if you found this episode helpful, make sure you like this video and also subscribe to this channel. Every single week, we break down current economic events, market trends, and historical patterns to help you make more informed financial decisions during uncertain times. Thanks again for joining me on this episode of Straight Talk. And with that being said, I'll see you next week.